In this video, I want to show you how to make awesome stencils. Some of you have actually requested for me to make this video, so I'm really happy to do it because I love making stencils and I have recently really got into it. So this video is about making stencils for your collagraphs. I'm going to show you how I draw inspiration to make stencils. I'm going to show you what are the materials you can make stencils with. And I'm also going to show you a creative way of using your stencils. Hope you enjoy the video and let's get cracking. Okay, so first of all, I'd like to talk you through how I find inspirations for my stencils. So I was by the seaside and I took lots of photos of rock formations, and then in Photoshop I changed the image to black and white and I posterized it, or you can just up the contrast, and I just ended up with black and white. And the reason why I moved the color is because I wanted not to be distracted by it. So the reason why I chose these images is because they provide a really interesting pattern. And I created, first of all, a stencil made on Mylo. You can get Mylo on Amazon or other art stores, online art stores. And Mylo is quite transparent, so I just placed it on top of my image, and with a permanent marker, I just used Stencil Lume Color, a permanent marker. It's very thin tip. I just sort of drew out not exactly the shapes, but kind of things that I picked out that I found interesting. So these, you can see similarities of some of the patterns coming through. I used this stencil quite a few times now, as you can see. I never really bothered to clean it. It's not, you can clean it, but you don't have to. I sort of left it, and it becomes sort of stronger, more durable, I guess, the more acrylic paint it has built up on it. So I have several different, so for example, this pattern, I thought it was very interesting, and I created, I haven't cut this one out yet, but I used these sort of rock formation patterns, and I thought this would provide a really interesting pattern. So I drew out with my pen, and I'm going to cut it out. I use a scalpel, just an ordinary scalpel, and craft knife. Mylo is quite tough, but it's not too bad to cut. It's a lot of work if you don't mind it, but a stencil can give you so much pleasure. It can put a really interesting texture to so many different artworks. So I like to invest this time and get something really cool. So this is Mylo. Just got another stencil here, a bit more sort of vertical shapes. I took this picture in Portugal of a old house, and I created a sort of Mylo stencil pattern here. I haven't cut that one out. I just wanted to show you before I cut it out. So if I want something a bit more gridded in one of my artworks, I can use this as my stencil. Another stencil material, very surprising actually, but it can become a lot easier to cut, is you just literally take a photocopy paper, just standard A4 photocopy paper, and paint it with sunflower oil on both sides and let it dry. So then it becomes water resistant. So this was great thing about, I mean, it's not going to last you very long, but the great thing about it was that it was super easy to cut. So then I painted it, I put a layer of gloss medium on, or matte medium, depends what you want to do, on gel plate. Could just be acrylic paint. And then I pressed it against the gel plate just to get just a bit more durability on this paper. So after I've cut the stencil out, I've pressed it against the gel plate loaded with acrylic medium or paint. So that sort of sealed it. You don't have to do that, because once you use this stencil a few times, it will build up a layer of acrylic media or paint, which will seal it, which will make it a lot more durable. But beauty of this is this very lightweight. So you can use it for jelly printing, and you can use it for just sort of monoprint stenciling on your collagraph prints, or on anything that you want to do on any artwork. So, you know, you might want your stencil to be a little bit more rigid or very, very soft. So just depending on what you're using your stencil for. So that's another stencil material. Another really great stencil material is Dura-lar. It's archival polyester film. So it's sort of, you can get it see-through. I bought a see-through one because I wanted to make it just for stencil making. Is great. And it's sort of that sort of texture. And what I found about it, it's not brittle, it's soft. So when I was making my stencil and I was cutting it out, it was very easy to cut. So I don't know if you can see, if I get it against the light. I've got another stencil. I haven't used it yet, so it's really hard to see. But I found it super easy to cut. It was great. And what I used to attach it to my image was these little sort of dot stickers. You just sort of use them like that. They're absolutely brilliant. They can make it sticky, so your stencil doesn't move on top of your image. Yeah, so that is another fabulous material for stencils. So just to show you some other stencils I use. So this is from my rock formation sort of pattern, and it's a little bit more organic stencil rather than sort of very rigid lines. So it depends really. So I've got a really good kind of array of very, very different patterns here. I've also got this I made on a sort of plastic sheet. That was super hard. That's too rigid. I wouldn't, I mean, it will last me, but I just wouldn't use that material again. It was at the beginning of my sort of stenciling experimenting. So but that's another, I didn't use anything to, I just made this pattern up, but it's very useful to have these little bits of pattern of different shapes. You can have, this is another one I've used just to give you some ideas, and you can have sort of bigger, blockier shapes as well. So anyway, this is enough talking about stencils. So again, you can use any images you like, any patterns, anything that really catches your attention that you think you would like to use in artwork. So you can have bigger stencils, so they can become a main focal point of your artwork, or you just can have sort of little smaller patterns, and you can just use part of your stencil just to have a little detail in one part of your artwork. Okay, so now that we made our stencils, how do we use stencils? So I don't want to get bogged down in making collagraphs in this video, because this is about stencils. So I'm just going to use some collagraph prints. I have tons of these black and white prints which lend themselves really well to doing something with. They are prints of collagraph plates, funnily enough, made of collage papers which utilized stencils. So I have a ton of these. You can find out how to make them using stencils in my collage collagraph video. You can find a link here too. But basically, I just want to show you how you can use all of these stencils that you make in different ways, because you can use them as you can use the spaces in between to print, but you can also use the actual stencil itself to print with too. So there you can use this sort of negative and a positive space differently. So one stencil can give you two different options. And I want to explore all of these. And also what I want to show you is when you cut your stencils out, don't throw away all the bits that you cut out. Keep them. I have a special stencil waste jar in my studio full of these wonderful shapes, and I am just going to show you how sometimes I use these sort of stencil waste bits. Okay, so first of all, because I want to protect the borders of my artwork, you don't have to. You could actually go outside of the border and do a cool stencil. Maybe I leave one of them to do that. But in order to protect my borders, I am going to use a frisket tape. And frisket tape is wonderful because it only very slightly sticks to the paper, so you can actually peel it off really easily once you're done. Also, it's got a nice helpful grid, and it's a little bit see-through, so I can be quite accurate with my borders. So I'm just going to use this bit here. And I'm going to just draw out with my border. The border is not exactly even, so I'm not going to use a ruler. Just going to cut it out as it is. Wonderful. Okay, so as you can see, it's not too difficult to apply because it only sticks ever so slightly. So I'm going to use the same stencil twice for two different artworks. On one artwork, I'm going to use the positive, as in the actual physical, the positive space of the stencil, and on the other artwork I'm going to use the negative space, so the bits that are cut out. I'm going to use a jelly plate to imprint the negative spaces onto my artwork, and then I'm going to take another Collagraph print, and I'm going to use the ink that stays on my stencil and imprint on this one. So I will go for a graduation sort of ink that will go from one color to another. Depending on the transparency of the ink, we should see perhaps a little bit of artwork showing through. Yeah, it will very much depends on that. I'm going to use Aqua Intaglio ink, only because it takes a lot longer to dry, so I don't really have to rush with my print on a jelly and worry about it drying, and it's just going to give me that flexibility. Okay, I decided for my first experiment, I'm going to make my paint opaque, and I'm going to make it opaque by mixing it with opaque white, a little bit of blue. I haven't used this blue for a while, so it needs a good stir. Now I am mixing my paints on another jelly plate, because what I want to do, I want to avoid sort of lumps of ink. I know a lot of people apply ink, ink or paint directly on jelly plate, but I really don't like how this creates lumps. And I'm not stressed here because I'm not worried about paint drying, so I'm pretty chilled. So I'm only going to apply this color to half of the plate because I'm going to use two different colors here. Aqua inks, this is very smooth, very different. I decided I'm going to try out my new stencil because I haven't used it before and I'm really excited about using it. So I'm just gonna place it like so, and I have my print protected board with protected borders. Wonderful. That's really rather nice. I mean, I've protected borders, I'll be able to peel it off and get rid of the edges, but actually, I mean, you don't have to do that. It's quite nice having the sort of overlaying as well, so that is another option. I'm now going to use this, and I'm going to use the press because I'm going to monoprint whatever's left on my stencil on another print. I'm going to use this one. So just placing my print here. I don't think I will need to wet it. I'm going to protect the borders just by using newsprint. Okay, got my stencil nicely inked up from the jelly. I'm just going to drop it down. It's kind of delicate. Just added a little bit more interest. Okay, so this is an exciting reveal part. When I take my frisket tape, I should get a lovely border, undisturbed border. So, two quite different results. one a more delicate. One is a little bit more delicate, and one has a lot more coverage of the stencil. But what I'm also quite excited about is what has been left behind from my print. So quite liking these little treasures on the newsprint. I was just using it to protect my borders, but I have ended up with quite a nice range of collage papers that I could potentially use at some point. So at the very edge of my stencil, I've got something really lovely that's come out. So yeah, don't throw anything away. It's definitely worth keeping, whatever you have. So I've just cut these out, and I'm immediately super excited by the possibilities of these little collage papers. I'm starting to imagine a new artwork. So I'm going to use the already existing ink that I have, and I'm going to place my stencil on in a different way. I'm going to do it like this, and I'm going to get rid of the negative space, but it's showing me, it's kind of creating a new opportunity that I'd like to explore. I'm going to use another one of my prints. Okay, so the negative spaces are not so blocky, they have some pattern as well. As you can see, I've gone over the edge. I didn't protect the border, but basically it's sort of different way of approach. So I'm just going to clear out whatever is left on a plate. So what I'm hoping for is a sort of grungy, lovely, textural stencil that I can now print on another one of I'm just going to make a really quick window. And I'm just going to drop it on top. Okay, so very delicate, just a little suggestion of pattern there. Perhaps got a bit lost on black and white design, not so sure, but just a different approach, just to show you a different approach. Stencil still got plenty of ink on it, so I'm just going to put it through the press. Okay, so this has been printed on a very yellow paper, so I'm not really sure how my colour's gonna come out. I'm going to use the same window. And again, I'm going to drop my inked up lovely stencil on top. Really nice. It's just a little bit more crisp. It depends really what you want to achieve. Yeah, it's rather lovely. So here's to recap. You can use a part of the stencil. You can use, here is some of the results of today's stencil printing. You have sort of more, you can have more crisp, more subtle results, more grungy feel. You can use the more negative space, which will give you a lot more coverage, or you can use the positive space of the stencil. You can also end up with a bundle of absolutely gorgeous collage papers. I'm keeping those and I will definitely use them in my artwork. Just wanted to add that there is absolutely nothing stopping you inking up your stencil directly using a roller. You will end up with a bit more ink on it. It can be a bit tricky if you don't have a jelly plate. This is obviously a way to do it. It's just, it can get stuck to your roller and it can be a little tricky. So, but just to demonstrate, I will do without using the jelly plate. I'm using my jelly plate here as a palette, only because I have that ink on there on top, but obviously you don't have to. So you will have quite a good layer, very crisp of ink. If that's what you want, this is the way to do it. Cool. There we go. Slightly crispier look. Okay, so this, I'm going to show you a completely different approach to a stencil. I'm using a 300 GSM smooth, very smooth paper. I'm not wetting it because it's more about sort of monoprinting than anything else. And as I mentioned, I keep all my cutouts when I do my stencils in this little jar of treasures. So what I'm going to do is I'm kind of randomly going to, semi-randomly, place these little beauty lovely, and I'm going to just ink up a piece of plastic acetate. Okay, I've got my piece of acetate ready. I'm going for orange because this is my first layer and I'm planning to build on top. So it's a very light ink. So it shouldn't be too much of a problem printing on top of it. Now I'm not going to go for a block of colour because that will be a bit boring. So I could have used different colours if I was a little bit more adventurous today, but I'm just using one colour for now as my base. And I'm just going to do a little drawing on top. So I'm going to use a palette knife and okay, I'm ready to drop my inked up orange plate. Now this is going to be a bit tricky because I kind of want it to be central and straight. Very difficult. Not entirely straight, sorry, central, but it's all right. It's all right. I'm not panicking. Cool. Ooh, super cool, super cool. Quite loving this. What's really lovely about this is that I actually have embossing going on as well. Lovely effect. So plan is I'm going to use my stencil and print on top. So just to show you, I'm trying to get the right sort of light. Look at these gorgeous embossings. Wonderful, isn't it? And some of them have got a border around it. Is because when I was doing a stencil, there was a pencil marker, permanent marker around the shape for me to cut out, and that has kind of come out on some of them, which is quite cool. So I'm, oh, this is just beautiful, delicious. Okay, so I've cleaned up my stencil with a baby wipe. Actually, Dura-lar is quite good at wiping stuff off, so it's a really good one to use stencils for. I want to protect my borders. So here comes the newsprint paper. It's like a bit of a torn edge. Yes. Okay. Let's do it. That's lovely. I don't know what I'm going to do with this yet. It's at its initial stages, but if I do something with it, I'll post it on a community page. But it's an exciting beginning. Now, I don't want to get this, I don't want to waste this plate, so I'm going to peel off all my gorgeous stencils and I'm going to print the ghost. Okay, so after removing all the bits, I have ended up with a sort of ghost image of all of them. So I thought it'd be interesting to just place them maybe in different places. Okay, really cool basis for something else. Very interesting. Let's go. Anyway, just to recap, the ghost sometimes can give you an opportunity to create more layers because it starts off more delicately. This is still pretty good. I'm going to use it for something. I might print a collagraph on top, mute the colors down a bit with some more monoprinting. These guys, they were just experiments. Not much can be, maybe some collage paper on top. Haven't decided yet. Again, when I do something, I will post it so you can guys see what I've done with these. Anyway, hopefully I have showed you all the exciting things you can do with stencils and how you can create your own stencils. And I have the most incredible selection of really fun collage papers that I'm going to use in some future artwork. So thank you so much for watching, and if you want to support my channel, subscribe and like, and I will make you lots more videos. See you soon.